Thump, thump, thump. Such a smooth transition.
It's a great way to start the morning.
And we're going to get into that song and that album. Hello, everyone. My name is W, host of the High Art on the Edge page. In today's special event, a special guest, Lorain Nicholson, and myself are going to shine a golden spotlight on a band that we both greatly admire, not just for their lyrics, not just for their power indie rock, not just for their live shows, but what they have done to change the landscape of music. And that's what we're going to get into in a little bit. This event requires us to share our love with you regarding the band's songs, albums. We may do some rankings. We may have some questions for each other. At any time during this event, as you're watching, feel free in that little comment box to share any of your stories, any of your sentiments regarding My Morning Jacket. And I'm sure there are a plethora. And if you have a question for Lorain or myself, go ahead. Let me introduce Lorain Nicholson and how I came in contact with her, and then I'll bring her in. So there is a record store down in Monterey, and I was down there a few years ago, and I was browsing the internet looking for a record store, and I found one kind of near downtown Monterey, and it's fine, it's fine. And then I got back in the car and looked for another place, and I said, Siren Records, what is this place? So I went over to Siren Records in Monterey, parked my car, and I walked in, and I was like, holy crap, what is this place? And the first thing I noticed, because I was taught this from one of the greatest restaurant managers I have, he always said to me, make sure when the customer walks in, they know they are taken care of. And number two, the place is clean. So I walked into Siren Records in Monterey, and both of those were established from the get-go. When you walk into Siren Records in Monterey, you're going to get a feeling like you're a part of something inclusive. You're not just another customer, another number. They go about their business in a way that they want to stay connected to you, but let you browse the store without feeling like they're hovering over you, which is always a great feeling as a consumer and a customer, right? So that is kind of my first experience with Siren Records and learning more about the business that they do. And I got in touch with Lorain Nicholson, and we've been kind of online friends ever since. I didn't realize at that time when I first had met her that she was a big My Morning Jacket fan, and big doesn't cut it. So over time and through some videos that she has shared, then I got a real clear sense of how much and how important this band is to her. So enough of me talking. I'm going to bring in Lorain Nicholson. Hello, Lorain. How are you doing?
Hi, William. Thanks for having me here today. It's such a great subject matter. It's going to be so fun.
Well, thank you so much. And before we get started, why don't you give the audience share a little bit about what you do?
Okay. Hi, everyone. This is Siren Records Monterey. We're in the store right now, and we are a working store. You can probably see the boys walking back and forth to pull orders for us this morning before we open the doors to the public. Anyway, what we do here is we have retail on one side and wholesale and online platforms that we do in the other room on the other side. And that's we've been here. How long we've been here? I can't even remember. We started in Los Angeles in I think 1992. Something like that. So, and then we moved up here to Monterey. I want to say it's been over a decade, I think.
And I want to go back a little bit before this store, just to give the viewers a sense of how music entered into your life. can you remember when you first started to listen to music and really appreciate its sound and its impact?
Sure. My parents both really loved music in the house growing up, but it was kind of a very weird juxtaposition because my dad really loved country music and my mother was more of a fan of like opera and that kind of stuff. So there was always this undercurrent of lunacy where people were jockeying to get their stuff played. And it was a lot of stuff. My mom used to like put records for my sister and I quiet time so she could get the hell away from us, and just listening to a lot of that stuff that way too. It's like when you have to lay down and listen, it kind of gives you that appreciation.
So I can clearly remember when I was going through that transitional stage in my hormonal teenage life. I was swimming out of the lane of Thompson Twins, Culture Club, that kind of stuff, and really moving now into the sphere of indie, dream pop, and shoegaze. And people ask me, what is one of the earlier albums that you remember that helped, was the catalyst for that change? And that was Galaxy 500's On Fire album.
Ah.
So tell us an album or two that kind of moved the record needle over for you.
Well, let me see. I had a lot of like 70s stuff because growing up, I listened to what my sister listened to. But I kind of remember a real turning point for me being when I discovered Kate Bush. Not from Stranger Things, but from The Kick Inside. And for me, when I heard The Dreaming, I couldn't believe that record, like how unusual but great it was. So I'd say that was like a real benchmark for me.
In terms of experience music, one of my very first concerts was The Cure, the Kiss Me, Kiss Me, Kiss Me tour in Oakland. I was completely gobsmacked by what I was watching. The big, vibrant, full, lush lips on the screen on the opening number. I was in awe of like, what am I watching here? Can you tell us a concert or two beside a My Morning Jacket concert that really kind of woke up and aroused those senses?
This is funny, but when we were little kids, my parents somehow took us to see Ike and Tina Turner. And I remember the Ikeettes all had on these real sparkly green dresses and the way that they were like just spinning around and doing their thing. And it was just like, wow, I want to do that. It was so great. So, I mean, from like right from the get-go, and that's like for me, live music's ever since it's everything.
Okay. Tell us a few before we get into the band that we're focusing on. Tell us some other bands that are high up there on the echelon for you, that platform. Besides,
I just love indie rock so much. There was a while when grunge was super popular, and I kept thinking, "Wow, am I past it now?" I wasn't embracing it the same way that I had loved some of the bands like New Order and The Cure and things in the '80s, and it was kind of like a no man's land. And then all of a sudden, thank God, indie music started to become more at the forefront. And then you were hearing Fleet Foxes, Blitzen Trapper, who else? And then eventually Father John Misty. And it's like, oh, good. People are making records I really, really like again. Ty Segall. Who else? Kurt Weill. I love these guys, and it's like that sort of got me back in the groove. Thank goodness.
So what is it about that indie sound that you really love?
I think it's like guitar-oriented rock without being rock gods. None of these guys don't, have the same posing as, let's say, some of the metal guys do, or that kind of stuff. It's not necessary. Well, there's nothing wrong with that. If people love that, rock on, great. But I like guitar-oriented rock, and I like the lyrics are very important to me. And so if the lyrics are stupid, I'm not so good with that.
So let's get into our discussion about My Morning Jacket, shall we?
Yeah.
So I'm going to start first, if you don't mind. And I'm going to first share how they kind of entered into my world here. And I think this is just speaking from my experience here. So, and I will admit, I will full on admit that it was Z that opened the door for me. And I clearly remember I took a trip um, in 2003, summer of 2003, or maybe it was 2004. And you know, when you have that album that comes along with you on a trip,
Yeah.
that was the album. And that was the album that I listened to nonstop over and over and just was really kind of admiring this different sound, in my opinion. And I think what really captured my imagination and my attention was that they were able to take this rock sound, and I know it's not totally traditional, amalgamate it with that indie flavor, have a little bit of flair for the electronics, but it was the bass.
Mm.
It was the bass hooks. It was the bass and the drumming that really um, I remember sitting there, and I remember we had like just a rental car, and I got up like at 4:30 in the morning, way out in Taos, New Mexico, and I just drove around with that album, and it was
Yeah.
just that magical feeling. So that was my first experience. Haven't looked back. What about you?
Boy, what a good album to start with, you know.
Yeah.
I was having a conversation with, Jeff that runs the fan page on Facebook. I was talking to him. I met him in Mexico at one big holiday last time, and we were talking, and he was like saying, "What was like the first MMJ song you can remember hearing that like really hit you?" And for me, it was Bermuda Highway. I just kind of remember hearing that and being like, what the hell is this? And then, okay, now we got to dig a little deeper. So I can't say that I was like right out of the gate on it with Tennessee Fire, but I got there with At Dawn, and then just ever since. Yeah.
Okay, so in terms of you kind of expressing your love and appreciation and affinity for this band, there are different touching points we can go about: lyrics, instrumentation, concert experiences, which you have way more than I do with this band. In fact, I'm going to have to admit something here in a little bit. So what do you want to start with? Would you like to start from the early parts of their career and just
Yeah, I think that's a good place to start, like, from the beginning. And
okay,
this is what makes it like, I love them with every beating second of my heart and every timeline in every universe. So
okay,
it's all good, it's all the way through. And so sadly, let me see here. I don't have we're sold out of the Tennessee Fire, but I do have a
okay.
little photo. I'm just going to show you on my phone
Yeah,
so people
please.
know what the hell we're talking about. Okay. And this is the beginning. Okay, there. I hope you guys can see the
There you go.
Tennessee Fire. Can you see that?
Yeah, yeah.
My fluorescent lights are not great. Okay, so that's the Tennessee Fire, and that one. Okay, these guys, they formed in 1998. The Tennessee Fire, that's when they were signed to Darla Records. Thank God that guy had the wherewithal to realize he had something great going on here. And
Yeah.
so in 1999, we got the Tennessee Fire, and parts of that were kind of recorded in this little makeshift studio that was on a farm owned by the original guitarist Johnny Quaid's grandparents. And so they let them come and practice there. And I think that that's probably where they discovered the glory of reverb, because they put Jim in the abandoned grain silo to just cut loose, and they realized that is like a thing, and it's kind of been a trademark that's carried on ever since. Anyway, this is the Tennessee Fire. To me, it's kind of a misleading title, because this really feels like a Kentucky record to me,
Yeah.
all the way through. And it's got lots of reverb on the vocals. There are songs like "I Will Be There When You Die" is amazing, and "Nashville to Kentucky." But then it's like there's another side to them, even in those early days, where they've got "Heartbreaking Man" and "The Dark." They kind of foreshadow where these guys were going to be headed towards At
Yes.
Dawn, and they hadn't quite solidified their lineup. They hadn't toured all that much. So they didn't even realize their extended future in like jams and things like
Yes.
that. But most of the songs top out over 3 and something to 4 minutes, but there one song on this album tops out over 5 minutes, and that's kind of that was the I Think I'm Going to Hell.
Yes. Yes, that is correct. And so I actually want to, if you don't mind, I want to play something here. And this is track 3. This is The Bear.
Oh.
So a big, as I mentioned earlier, there are many qualities and traits to this band that I greatly respect. But I always keep coming back to the percussion, the drums. And maybe because I play a little bit of drums, I
Oh.
have a little bit of more appreciation for that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying I'm a drummer by any means, but I just always go back. So for you, it could be The Bear, other tracks on this album. Are there some really strong tracks that grabbed your attention immediately or took some time to really appreciate?
Well, I'm with you on The Bear for sure, but I think Phone Went West, and that's something. No, I'm sorry, that's the next album we're going to talk about. I'm ahead of myself, William. Excuse me.
There's a lot. There's a lot. Don't
There's a
worry.
lot. There's a lot of deep catalog here. Let me see. I would say that I'm pretty impressed with. I Think I'm Going to Hell. I think that that's like kind of wow. You know, that's a real smack upside your head. Look at what they can do.
Now, I'm going to admit right now at this moment, I have never seen this band live.
Oh,
I know. I
it's
know.
time.
It's time. So I have to ask you, in relation to Tennessee Fire, I'm sure I could find it somewhere on the internet. Do they tend to go deep into this catalog when they
Um,
play and perform live? Do they
I
go to the Tennessee Fire?
Well, no, not so much, but that's again, it's a special thing when they do like a 2 or 3 night run, and you can go every day and you'll never hear the same set. There's no overlap, you know, because there's so much. And every now and then they will throw in one of those little, you know, nuggets for you. And it's pretty special, you know. I'm trying to think if I've really heard them ever do anything from Tennessee Fire live. I'm not sure. It's not it's not big on the rotation, I
Okay.
would say.
Okay. And I would imagine the crowd would probably just go ballistic, right?
Well, those
Because
that are there and they know, you know,
yeah,
that's a pretty cool thing. Again, this is kind of you and I sort of had a conversation about the right people being in the right band. But these first 3 records, you know, that's still when they had Johnny Quaid as the lead guitarist and Danny Cash was on keyboards, and still this good, you know.
yeah.
It's like
No, and right, you nailed it right there. This good at the early stages of their career. And I do like talking about album covers a little bit. Is there anything about this album cover that grabbed your attention, or can we move on to the next one?
Well, I mean, I again, not having spent time in the South and not really knowing, I'm guessing the Tennessee Fire is like some kind of a superstore there. You know, I don't know that much about it, but I do love that red neon look of that. I think it's
Yeah.
great.
When this album or any of the My Morning Jacket albums are in your store, do people tend to pick those up relatively? They don't sit for too long, do they?
Well, yeah, that's what I mean. We actually buy At Dawn and Tennessee Fire direct from Darla, and we do get them in bundles. And we just sold out of Tennessee Fire, so it's like the reissue on that was like double red vinyl as well.
Nice.
And
Very nice.
no, they're just there. It's gone. So time to get more. I would say
All
every
right.
single day when I'm shipping, I ship some My Morning Jacket, like every single day.
I want to, before we move into At Dawn, I want to read some lyrics from a song off of Tennessee Fire.
Okay.
And this is Picture of You, not Pictures of You, The Cure. You know, simplicity, right? We forget the simplicity and the power within these lyrics. Sometimes I feel like music listeners need the complexity of all this amazing prose and wit and, you know, sarcasm and all that. Sometimes you can just tell it like it is, and that's fine. It's maybe one of the reasons why I love Galaxy 500. I've got the ocean blue, I've got a picture of you with green eyes and a cocaine smile. Love that, and a cocaine smile. Now, if I were teaching this in classroom, which I wouldn't be doing with my fourth or fifth graders, that's a great metaphor. And I love how they use this figurative language throughout a lot of their lyrics, and whether it be a simile, metaphor, personification, good stuff. Is there a song on this album that, because you mentioned you love lyrics, are there any lyrics that you are some particular standouts for you?
I wish I had it in front of me to reference it. You know, again, I'm not going to claim to be like one of the experts with the Tennessee Fire, because again, it wasn't where I started out. So I can't tell you of anything that is particularly in my head that sticks.
Okay, great. All right, so now we go from Tennessee Fire, and we're going to move right into At Dawn.
Yes, and this is what that looks
Ooh,
like.
look at that, very nice. Released 2001
Yes, correct.
or 9/11.
Mm-hmm. And still through
Still
Darla.
Darla Records.
Yeah, still with Darla.
Okay, so now we're starting to move. Their sound is changing a little bit, but still retaining that
Yes,
MMJ
I think
sound.
the feeling of intimacy on this record is, you know, very present, and it's kind of unparalleled, really. There's something about the voice and the acoustic guitar together on this that
Yeah.
really, like, it creates this fullness. It's like a perfect soundtrack for a summer road trip, like you were talking about, right?
Yes, I love that. And I remember so going down that rabbit hole many years ago and acquiring more knowledge about this band and their work. I remember listening to this album. A friend of mine loves this band. He said, "Well, you got to check this album out if you like this." And so then I went backwards and I'm like, wow, this is an amazing second album. So, in a word or two, what is it about this album that you really love? What do you appreciate?
I think just that, you know, growth as a band, you know, and just you kind of can see more and more them finding their feet. You know, this is like showing you a band that just kind of, they don't kind of dead stop and stay comfortable. They keep it moving, you know, and I
Yes.
think that the songs are even better on this record. There's growth in writing songs, and like I said, the intimacy that they create in that space, it's growth. I think it's really shows here.
So we got some great tracks here. If any of them are some of your favorites, feel free to let us know. So, of course, we start with At Dawn, classic. Low Down, The Way That He Sings, Death
Oh,
Is My Sleazy Pay, Hopefully, Bermuda Highway, Honest Man, which is one of my favorites.
fabulous.
I would love, I'm sure they have played that song many times live. I'm not sure, but I
They
would
do,
love.
but yeah, yeah. It's like
I
it's a treat.
imagine those 7 to 8 minute, 9 minute, 10 minute songs are pretty epic. Do they really add more punch in a live fashion to these longer songs?
Yes, I think so, because they are really free to, you know, each one of these guys, it's like they're such masters at adding,
Mhm.
but nobody goes overboard. And it's like
Yeah.
they just know what they're doing, you know? And yeah, I think that the almost it makes it after the live experience a few times, the records sort of feel, do I want to say a little limiting? It's kind of like you know, they're sort of like contained on this disc, but on there, they aren't, you know?
They're almost like appetizers
Yeah.
for that concert experience. And like you mentioned a couple minutes ago, kind of like the Grateful Dead, and I imagine like Dave Matthews Band, the band James does the same thing. You're not going to get that same set list,
Yeah. Yeah.
and they're always mixing it up. Um, in terms of this album, I think for me, this is where I was starting to get a feel of his voice and me making that strong presence. And what he's so good at is what I think a lot of people admire and respect is his range.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm that's when to me I'm starting to feel and see more of that and hear more of that.
Yeah.
That's just those are my ears. You mentioned Bermuda Highway, how much you love that song. Is there another track on this album that you um,
Well, I mean, I really love the way that he sings. I love Lowdown, as you said, Honest Man, but the Phone Went West is on here, and we do still enjoy that live these days, you know, and as a nice treat. That's an amazing song, too.
there's a throwback to this, right?
Well, it's just, you know, I kind of love the, like we were talking about range with Jim. It can start out so soft and lovely like this. And then, you know, you've got other things where he's just giving you everything. He kind
Yeah,
of can do it all, right?
it's pretty amazing. And there are those drums again. Okay, so the album cover.
Yeah.
Anything you want to say about the album cover?
Well, I mean, I'm guessing it's like the Hollywood Bowl, right? But it's
Yeah,
like
yeah. That
at
I'm
this
sure
stage,
someone
they
can.
weren't anywhere near the Hollywood Bowl. So I don't really know where that came from. It's a really cool picture.
It
Um,
is.
yeah, I'm not sure, William. I don't know what the story behind that is, how they ended up choosing that image. But
No, I love it, and that's to me. So that's and again, these are just all interpretations. But
sure.
to me, that's starting to get that communal MMJ feel. You're bringing people in this live experience, and I haven't experienced yet, but that to me, and then of course you have the dawn part and all that good stuff. So, okay, let's go. Anything else you want to say about that album at dawn?
Well, let's see. I'm going to let you know that this is like what we've got going here is the 20th anniversary edition. So it's a double, and it's you know, 1,000 clear white with metallic gold vinyl, 2 LPs. You know, you can get the special deluxe version if you're so inclined.
Okay, so now we're gonna swim over to the next lane. The third album, released 2 years later. We've got the bear here. We've got It Still Moves. And there it is. We got it over there. And
Yeah, that's right.
this is on a different label, huh?
Yes, this was the jump from indie to major with ATO. 2003, and it's there was an EP that was a prequel to this. That's Chocolate and Ice, and that was where we got Cobra, which kind of was like 24 minutes of electro funk that was not. People were wondering what is it going to be like? You know, what are we going to be expecting? And it really had people questioning maybe the direction that this was going to go in. But this is still, you get your spacey Southern psych here. Still, it's all intact. You know, it was just that EP is pretty special, but it wasn't like really telling you what this was going to be all about.
Okay, now because you've seen them live, how many times roughly?
You know, I'm going to put it somewhere. Believe me, there's people that we just had a girl in our group that hit her 100th not long ago. Yeah, I know. And amazing. I wish I could chase them all over the country and abroad, but no, I'm topping out somewhere around the 20s.
It's like a down payment on a car.
Worth every penny. It's a sweet ride.
This album really caught the attention of critics. Great reviews. Kind of put them on the map in our consciousness, right? There is a track in here. I know people talk about Golden. That obviously being our master plan, big favorite.
Oh yeah.
Is there a track on here that you feel like just doesn't get that love?
Well,
But
I think they get love, but again, you've got Magita on here that is just that's a song that's played pretty frequently live. And I
yeah,
love it because it's a play on words, Magita, Magita.
nice,
And
nice.
it's, there's always kind of a little sense of humor in there that, you can find it. But boy, what a good song that is too.
It, it's like that Wurlitzer sound, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's incredible. I mean, what a great way to start. I'm going to go back to what I mentioned earlier, and one of my favorite tracks is this one, Steam Engine. We forget about, and I'm no engineer of music, but to me, another great quality to this band is the production value. When I can hear that hi-hat, when I can hear that ride cymbal or it being crashed, it does a lot for me.
Mm.
And so I think with this album, Patrick's drum work is really starting to move into terrain that there's nobody like him.
I agree.
There's nobody like him. And when I've seen live videos of it, he makes it look effortless. Of course, we know it's not. I call him the octopus. His hair being the tentacles and just his arms are all over the place, but he's so damn smooth. Am I articulating that correctly
I
when you
think
see him live?
I think so too. Again, another piece of the puzzle. He knows exactly what he's doing, and he's so strong, but he knows how to pull it in too. It's not like he's just this ham-fisted like big guy killing everything. He knows exactly what he's doing, and it adds so much. And yeah, I agree with you. I think he's an incredible drummer.
Do they do with some bands, do they share spotlights? Okay, now Patrick's gonna have his 1 2 minute jam.
I think that they'll showcase things, but it's not like the days of the 70s where it was just like the endless drum solo, do, 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 where everyone's like, yeah, great. It's making us uncomfortable now. They don't go that far.
So
But
yeah,
the thing about this album too, William, and you'll probably agree, the reverb on this album, it gets so heavy, it could rival Sigur Rós,
yes, nice. I like that. Great reviews. Again, it came out in 2003. And let's not forget the producer of this album was Jim James.
Yes.
So he has his hands in a lot of this stuff. Okay.
But
So
another little key point here is like 74 minutes is long, this album. And that's like long for, it's a long time for like any record to go. But it is them. So we're, but I just, think that that's important too. It's a pretty long record.
in my opinion, true. But when I hear it, I don't feel it.
Yeah, you're not counting the minutes, but I just think it's an interesting point that,
Right.
that's what it is.
Okay. We go to album number 4.
Mm-hmm.
This is it. So there it is. Where's my copy? There it is, right there. Okay, so this is, as I mentioned at the beginning of this show, this is the one that really put them on the critical, acclaim map. We all know that. And I'm not going to talk about my connection to this album again, but I will say, over time, do I still have this love and grand feeling for the album? Yes, I do. Absolutely. However, I don't feel that obsessiveness about it anymore. but I still think it's a hell of an album. And I'm sure I'd recommend it to anybody that wants to get
Yeah.
into this band. So, as I mentioned, the drums are very important to me. But now I'm getting that synth quality, that electronic flavor, and them kind of playing around with that. What is it about this album that speaks to you?
Well, a lot of it, this is actually my favorite album of theirs. It's sort of hard to pick a favorite, but I think a lot of people are with me on that because, a lot happened in the time between It Still Moves and Z, mainly that uh, Johnny Quaid and Danny Cash left, and they brought in Carl Brummel and Bo Coster. And you see, I'm getting like tingles just thinking about it because it's like the right people in the right spot. There was like nothing wrong before, and those guys really they were suffering under this grueling recording and touring and so that's why they both it was an amicable departure. And then they just happened to get these two who fit like a glove. And I think that that's like so important. The band became Bonnaroo legends. Like those guys were only in for 6 months before they played that Bonnaroo show, which we now have the most recent live album to show you. That's the proof. And everything just fits together and it's just jaw dropping. I think that they were trying like more new things on this. Like first of all, there's less reverb on this,
Yes.
and it's okay because the songs are just fantastic. It's kind of got a Prince vibe going on Wordless Chorus that's like so cool, and Flaming Lips kind of inspired It Beats for You, and then you've got the kind of reggae meets Pink Floyd on off the record. There's a lot of like experimentation going on, and I think those two guys brought it to where everybody else was inspired to do different things. It was just like a fresh thing that happened, and thank God it did.
This is one of those albums I remember reading in Pace Magazine, Alternative Press, all those magazines. They were just gushing and gushing and just really like hamming this album up, and really all the critics, I think they put it on their top 10 lists, so on and so forth. There is a track on here. If you know the story, I should have probably researched this. There's a track on here that when my students had been introduced to My Morning Jacket, we were playing this song, and one of my boys, he said, "Mr. Frederick, can the boys learn this song?" I said, "Absolutely." Now, these were just fourth graders at the time, so they weren't going to learn the instrumentation, but they wanted to learn how to sing it. And I said, "Well, if you can learn how to sing like him, you're all moving up to fifth grade without a problem." And that track was Gideon. And we had a big, huge, we used to call it Frederick's Follies, where my students used to dress up and become the artists. And so I had 4 boys take on My Morning Jacket. And Gideon was one of the songs that they tried to sing. Now, to hit those notes, to have that range for a 4th grade boy, it doesn't work, but it's the spirit. This is my number 1 song. It's actually one of my top 5 MMJ songs. There is a blistering performance of this song that they did on David Letterman's show. Perhaps you've seen it. It's incredible. Do you know what this song's about?
Well, all I can say to that is I don't know exactly the thought process, but I did find that was another interesting point about Z is there is like a little bit of religion interjected in this record, but like not in a pushy way. But isn't there like a line in Gideon where it says something like religion for the young or something like that?
Yeah. So religion should appeal to the hearts of the young.
Yeah.
Who are you? What have you become? Animal, come on. What does this remind you of? I think what they're able to capture in this short amount of time with this song is that energy that you don't see from a lot of bands, and then just pressing on the gas pedal and just all systems go. and I'm sure has worn out his vocal cords to the to the ninth degree, and how he continues to do it, I don't know. But
I
when
love the
you
opening of it too, just with the soft little notes, the very very opening of it. It's just so it's subtle, and then it just builds, and it's so great.
so I can remember my students, we had the lighting on them.
Nice,
They had their backs toward the audience, and they turned around right here.
fantastic.
Um, and then of course we have Off the Record, Into the Woods. So many great songs. And this
Yeah,
is, to
this
be honest,
record had a lot of very slick production on it.
yeah,
It was very accessible in like a kind of pop friendly even,
yeah,
and it manages to like rock at 45 minutes. This manages to rock the same way that one did at 74 minutes, right? It's more encompassed. They can pull it in and do the same thing.
I love that. Okay. Anything else you want to say about that album?
It's on purple vinyl. The reissue is on double purple, through our friends at ATO. So yeah,
Fabulous.
it's pretty.
It is. Okay. So now we go from that album. That was the fourth album. And now we're going to go to their fifth studio album. That is Evil Urges.
That's right.
In the My Morning Jacket conversations, what's kind of the overall vibe sentiment for this album?
Well, this is a really polarizing album among fans because some people were just not having it. It was too far out there for the experimentation. Other people will tell you this is their favorite MMJ album. So it is a completely polarizing record. The stylistic changes that they've undergone here. It's a record that's very different from the familiar kind of Americana roots that we sort of were accustomed to. And
Yes.
While Z was like that was a stylistic departure as well. It was surprisingly largely accepted by fans, but it was like as a modern classic. But the willingness to experiment, it was like Wilco's Yankee Hotel Foxtrot. Most of the criticism of Evil Urges has been towards what's perceived to be even more extreme departure. It's subjective, right?
It's a shame because we all know when albums follow the masterpieces, it's for a while, it's never going to get that love. It's going to piss off a lot of people going, I want another Z, I want another this, I want another that. And I love how they just moved the needle over another bit, and we're going to do it in our own fashion. You start off with Evil Urges, which, I mean, that song must be phenomenal live. And then you have Touch Me, Highly Suspicious. And of course, I think a lot of people love I'm Amazed. Is there a track or two that are standouts for you here?
Well, obviously, Touch Me, part 1 and part 2 are on here, and those are, wow, just beyond. I would agree with you. I'm amazed, but thank you too. What a beautiful song. It's like either romance or just appreciation for other people. It can kind of be. You can make it however you want it to be. Librarian is on here. That is a beautiful song.
Yes, it is. And I'm glad you
And
mentioned
Smoking
that.
from Shooting is on here too. Another great track.
I have Librarian up. I'm glad you mentioned that because it's right here on my screen.
Sweet.
And I wanted to share some of the lyrics. Duck into the men's room, combing through my hair. When God gave us mirrors, he had no idea. Looking for a lesson in the periodicals. There I spy you listening to the AM radio. Karen of the Carpenter singing in the rain. Another lovely victim of the mirror's evil way.
What a great lyric, right?
So good.
Yeah.
Again, I'm not so in the trenches with how people feel about his songwriting, his lyric writing. do people have that great appreciation for his
I
lyric writing?
believe they do, because it's just I think he's a great songwriter, and just, sometimes the lyrics can be a little bleak if you really get into them, but other times he's pretty positive. And
Yeah.
whatever kind of is going on with him, it's not like he's revealing to you his whole life, but boy, everything is so relatable.
Yes. What do you think about so what do you think about the vibe? Tell me about the vibe on this album. What do you get from it?
Uh, I like that there's changes. I think that the Wilco comparisons are pretty apt, but like this is a band that's just showing their unwillingness to let like the success of previous albums dictate how they're going to carry on. They're, like you just said, they're still going to keep pushing the envelope, and I like that. I love when bands change up. I don't like them to stay the same all the time, and so I always appreciate that. When they're going
To
further,
me,
like.
this is comparable to Depeche Mode's album A Broken Frame.
Okay.
So whatever that means, that's what it means. Okay, so we go from Evil Urges to our next album.
Okay, so Evil Urges from 2008, and then there was they were quiet until 2011 when we got Circuital. But it's worth mentioning, in 2009, I think this was also another kind of a pivotal point for them. They were featured in the 6th season of American Dad, that TV show, the kind of
Yeah,
cartoon one, and
yeah,
they featured songs in there. The whole premise is that the dad goes to a MMJ concert with the idea of getting his daughter and bringing her back home, and then he just falls for it and ends up being like, like the rest of us. But anyway, the songs are featured, are like Touch Me Part 2, I'm Amazed, Remnants is in there, Highly Suspicious, which is like, kind of out of there. Those are all from Evil Urges, of course. And then Phone Went West from At Dawn is featured, and most prominently is Wordless Chorus from Z. But I think a lot of people didn't know who they were and got onto it from there and decided to explore. And I think
yes,
that kind of beefed up the fan base too. Wouldn't you say?
absolutely. And then we get this transition into this next album,
Mm.
2011.
Yes, 2011, we got Circuital. And this is
Okay.
like, you're probably wondering, why is it not the Green Eye, the original? Because this is the new one that came out, and it's either pink, blue, or like orange, and the eye tells you what color the vinyl is. This is Lucifer's Beach Blue. And
So
go ahead.
we just did an album listening party.
Yes.
This album, it is this is actually my favorite album of theirs.
Okay.
Um, it, okay. So going back to that Depeche Mode comparison, this is like a Black Celebration for me.
Okay.
Maybe it's connected to memories, as I've mentioned, driving the Tahoe. It became that Tahoe Drive album. It's the one album of theirs that I can over and over and over again and not get tired of it. I think the pacing of this album is fantastic. I think the different unique sounds and the variations from song to song, what captures my attention besides all the wonderful drum work is the transition, the flow of this album.
Mm, mm.
I absolutely love the flow. It has some of my favorite MMJ songs.
Oh, yes.
I have to ask you this question again because I have not seen them live. Uh, do they tend to play songs from this album?
Yes, very much so. Very much so. And like, I don't think it's been happening on this tour, but in the past shows, when they do Victory Dance, that's when Jim always wears the cape, and it's just, love when, and we want the cape back. The cape is great, and it just lends itself, because the lyrics of that, he's like really engaging you on the front line, and
Yeah,
It's just so, gosh, see, I keep getting goosebumps from our conversation from that stuff. But, it's like where Evil Urges was seen as such a divisive album. Circuital, it's more like a return to form, but not to say that it's any kind of rehash, not at all. It's a, what does that mean? Returning back exactly. They've never been a straightforward rock band, right?
yeah.
And especially on records. And so while Securital, it's closer to Z than to Evil Urges, it
I
doesn't feel
agree.
like a step backwards, right?
I agree. So I could literally, I'm not going to do this because of time, but I could literally talk about each one of these songs
Yeah, right.
and the attributes that I admire greatly. Uh, when I uh, when I used to drive to school and I was feeling low or dispirited, or I needed, like, during recess time, I needed to kind of just check out or need some kind of energy, I would put on this song. It revs up the engine as it should, because that's what they're doing, right? That wonderful strum. Uh, have you seen that song performed live?
I don't believe I have. No.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I don't think that I have. I've obviously seen Victory Dance and wonderful. I love Holding On to Black Metal. That's a nice concert showpiece for sure. But you know what I really love on this record too? Maybe it doesn't get quite enough love is Slow, Slow Tune.
Yes.
I mean that lyric got to radiate the gold. I love that. Oh
I
my
was
God.
cranking that last night. Cranking that.
Were you?
Uh, these subtle qualities that he does with his vocal,
Yeah.
um, there's that range and these melodies that he brings out. It is fantastic. One more thing about this album that I just want to comment on. The lyrics talked about, but again, as an entire album, it's just my opinion. I just love the cohesiveness of it all. And it's when it's over after moving away, I'm like, damn, that's over.
Uh-huh.
I want to hit play again.
Ah.
And that's why it's my favorite album. Like,
Well,
I want to go through that.
I think a lot of people, this was like their first concerts were, because this album grabbed them. And a lot of people will tell you that's the first shows that they saw were on the Circuital tour. It's easy to understand why.
All right. Let's go to our next album.
Okay.
The Waterfall, I believe.
Yes. It's another one we're sold out of here at the shop. So I brought mine from home.
Very nice.
And I didn't realize we were out of Tennessee Fire, or I would have brought mine too. But anyway, this is The Waterfall right here.
Okay. So where does this album stand for you? How do you feel about it?
I think it's another step forward for a band that's ever changing. This was when they booked time at that Panoramic House Studios in Stinson Beach. That's up the road from you and me. And man, imagine running into them in town. Would that have been crazy? Because they were there for quite some time, they were working on this. They're aiming for like a new spontaneity. And don't you feel like they achieved that? I do. This is it's different. This album is completely different. And it really captures the mood of Northern California. Would you agree?
Yes. And I'm glad you brought that up. I would agree. Does it get the love and attention, respect that you think that it deserves in conversations that you've heard?
I think perhaps maybe Waterfall 1 more so than Waterfall 2. But I just think there's some amazing songs on here, during these sessions, they had enough material for 2 albums. This was originally planned to be a triple. And the Waterfall 2, we'll get into that, but it was always considered the lost album. And, they pared this down. But look you've got Tropics, you got Believe, Big Decisions. God, I love that song. Spring, and Only Memories Remain. Now this is, it's kind of the Jim James had a really hurt his back. And, I think he had mentioned that a lot of these songs were him like singing, laying on the couch because, being unable to move. But also I think from these lyrics in a lot of these songs, kind of nursing a broken heart, perhaps too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Big Decisions. I'm glad you mentioned that.
What a song.
I mean, that production.
Gotta know.
And again, I can just imagine, particularly outdoor shows where you can see people. I can just see people's heads moving right, in synchronicity there. Still Big Decisions. Sitting around wondering what the hell to do with your life. Only get one chance, but you seem to always think twice. I'm getting so tired of trying to always be nice. You're sweet and sincere, but so ruled by fear. I do want to ask you, Lorain, you mentioned how much lyrics mean to you. What is it about his lyric writing that you really appreciate? Is it the romantic quality of it? Is it the positivity? What is it that you really respect?
I guess what speaks to me is that, a lot of those things are open to interpretation. He will give you the idea, but it's up to you to like put it in play. There are like a lot of songs I consider to be very romantic, but one thing about Jacket, you never find lyrics that are overtly sexual. Doesn't happen for him.
Right. Yes.
But there's a lot of romance, and this that we were just talking about with Big Decisions. It's obviously reconciling an uneven relationship, and it's super relatable again. And even with like Only Memories Remain, like how many of us can't like relate to that too, where you gotta go. I think what I love about his writing so much is that it's so relatable.
The names and places have all been changed, but the identity remains the same. As time and space do what they will, the spirit so vogue can never be killed. Our earthly bodies will surely fall, but the love we share outlives us all. Yeah, and I think that's why I go back to Securito album, is that I get this sense, again, this is my interpretation, and other albums as well, that we're living in this moment. Be in this moment. Embrace the hardships, embrace the wonderful things that come about, and celebrate it and honor and be human about it. I mean, that's in a silly way. That's kind of what
it's a good that's a good thought there. Actually, you're nailing it. Yeah.
No, it's good stuff. Anything else you want to say about our Yosemite National Park?
No, I think that was just like I said, a departure, but not a crazy one, and just something different, more growth.
Okay, so let's move on to our next album.
Okay.
We go from the Waterfall to what here?
Waterfall 2. This was finally the lost album came to light, and this was our gift during COVID, where everything was silent, and it was followed by Waterfall, several years of quiet. This came out in 2020, and no new releases, less than 10 shows played between 2017 and 2020.
Wow.
So Jim was largely focusing on his solo career at that point, and he delivered 5 albums between 2016 and 2019. Very productive time for him. And I think all of them were going and kind of doing separate stuff. Bo was on tour with Roger Waters. Yeah. And, Carl probably doing stuff with Future Birds, I would imagine. I can't say for sure what he was doing, but everybody was kind of like taking this minute to do their own thing. I don't even know, this is just as an aside, but during the pandemic, Patrick hosted like a cooking show that,
nice.
And he showed you how to make like 3 things, and he brought Tom in there, and they're in the kitchen, and it was super cool, just because Patrick was like, I think he was part owner in a restaurant in Kentucky at one point, because I think he just loves to cook. And it was really like a nice pandemic thing where, we could watch our boy making some wonderful dishes in the kitchen. But I digress. Okay. So anyway, at one point, MMJ were considering making that Waterfall this 3 LP set, as we were saying before. But when Waterfall 2 arrives with 10 songs that they opted not to put on Waterfall, it feels like another step forward. Another, they put their focus on their strengths and showing what they do best. And just in my humble opinion, I remember when I first heard like Wasted and Feel You, my immediate thought was, it's been so long since we've seen them live. I can't wait to see those live.
Yeah.
And then we did.
So I have queued up here track number 9 here. This is Welcome Home.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, goosebumps right there.
Absolutely.
All the colors on the leaves, all the love that comes to me, open arms are saying to me, welcome home. All the times we had to fight just to find I was wrong, but you'd still write a letter to me saying, welcome home. Again, then we go down for a little bit. As the snow glazed all the trees, I left my thoughts float on with the breeze. Air rushed in my lungs saying to me, welcome home. Again, I alluded this to earlier, the simplicity sometimes and the way that he sings, that's all you need. That is all you need. And there's time and places for Dylan and Leonard Cohen and, all these other amazing song lyricists. But that's probably my favorite track on the album. Do you have a favorite track?
Do I have a favorite? Like as I mentioned, Wasted and Feel You are important, but here's another little aside for you. After the pandemic, when we finally got in 2022, we finally got to go back to Mexico and have another one big holiday. They opened the show with that. Not a dry eye in the house.
Wow.
I'm telling you, if you could just stand there and watch that and not be pouring tears and you're not human, it was so beautiful. And never forget that. It's amazing.
Love
what a
that.
Perfect way.
And this is why I brought you to this conversation, because obviously you've been adding elements that I just don't have experience with. So thank you for that. Okay, so we go from the Waterfall to
Self-titled.
And this came out in 2021.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
6 years after the Waterfall.
That's pretty crazy. What are your thoughts on this one?
Okay, this is again one of the first times since moving to the majors that it's not got an outside producer. So it's different in that way. They're kind of like rejuvenated by those live Red Rocks shows for the 20th anniversary of the Tennessee Fire. So, there was a while where everybody was working on solo stuff and doing things that, maybe they weren't going to be a band anymore. And so then after those Red Rocks shows, I think that all 5 of them realized, oh, this is where the magic is. So everybody was like, let's just go. No pressure. We'll go in the studio and we'll just see what happens. And luckily, this wonderful thing happened, and it just captures that, untamed spiritual energy that is just exhibited in their live shows, and it's a contrasting talents of, Jim's very instinctive kind of playing alongside Carl, who is very classically trained, and the styles of the 2 of them just stretching out over this record. I think it's pretty important.
Do you know how the band feels about this album? Do you have any idea?
Well, I mean, I think that they're probably always very proud of their work. This had like a couple of singles, again, very different. Some people have had a little bit of criticism that, the lyrically that Jim's on his soapbox telling us how we should all be good people. And I think he's kind of preaching to the choir, because most of their fans, I think, want to do the right thing and agree with that. But I'm just saying outside critics kind of gave them a little bit of shtick for that.
I would love to see them play live. The devil's in the details.
Mm.
Again, this has kind of been my theme of this conversation. These longer songs that I can just only imagine them really embracing and maybe improvising from within. Do they play a lot with aesthetics on stage?
Well, how so? Do you mean like through lighting or?
Yeah, visuals, and I know I've seen some of the live stuff with the Okanoka stuff, but do they, or is it just really about the music?
It's pretty much, I would say, about the music, but there are these like little additions. There's always a mirror ball, because who doesn't love a good mirror ball? And then of course they've always got the stuffed bears, Pooch and Denise, that stay on stage all the time. And then there's another like little one with a flower crown that always like stays on Jim's stuff. I don't know if that one's got a name or not. But they have those. And then, like I said, sometimes we get to have, they bust out the cape sometimes, and that's a pretty dramatic flair, and that kind of stuff. But for the most part, it's pretty straight up, just our 5 boys doing what they do best.
This was in color. You got to believe it sounds better in color. All the rainbow to hear. You got to believe it looks better in color. All the spectrums appear. There's more to life than just black and white. So many shades in between. And actually, I didn't use that lyric. I didn't steal from that. But just yesterday, I think I posted being in that gray area is actually my favorite spot for me. I love kind of working through those turbulent inner conflicts at times, and that to me is the colorful part of life. This album, I think over time it's going to continue to grow with appreciation. I think the first 5 tracks are phenomenal, actually. And I'm very curious in how this is going to be setting us up for the next one. Have you heard anything in the MMJ camp?
Well, I believe that at one point they did say that there was some studio work going on. So,
okay.
Hard to say when that will surface, because they seem to want to take their time and get things just the way that they want them. But yeah, I feel like it's imminent.
All right, so I got to ask you 2 hard questions. We're going to wrap this up. Can you tell us 3 MMJ favorite albums?
For me, I'm going to say Z, Waterfall 1, and I think it's a toss-up between It Still Moves and Evil Urges. I'm not sure. It's very hard to pick favorites.
Yeah. Can you pick your favorite number 1 MMJ song?
I can't. And I have thought about this many times, and what would I say? Because there are certain things, but then if you pick that, oh, well, what about that? And there's just, I don't think I can. I guess I will just stay with Bermuda Highway, because that's what got me onto them in the first place. But God, I love hearing Steam Engine live too. See what I mean? I can't. You got to shut me down. I'll be here all day.
Because you've seen them many times live, is there a particular show that goes, okay?
You know what? I had never been to One Big Holiday before 2022. I didn't know what I was missing. And I just think it could have been just because we couldn't see them for COVID for so long, that it was that much more powerful and electric. But there was just something about that. And I couldn't tell you if it was like day 1, day 2, I'm not sure, but there was no overlap. And so they do a lot of interesting covers during those shows too. And how we had mentioned earlier, we were saying that the songs can be romantic, but never overtly sexual. But they did cover Tom Petty's, what is that, Breakdown? And I was Wow. Because I kind of consider that one to be. It was kind of a, wow, this is wild.
Last question. In 3 words, describe this band.
My spirit animals.
Nice. I love that. I love that. This has been a wonderful trip down memory lane, an experience in connecting with a band that I know you and I greatly respect and admire. Thank you for your time and sharing us with some of your stories and your enthusiasm. I'm looking forward to keep exploring more and more about this band and the richness that they bring to the musical landscape. It's and I will get to a concert. Oh no. Anyways, that was our conversation on My Morning Jacket. Thank you all for tuning in. If Lorain comes in, we'll have her say goodbye. If not, but I highly recommend getting down to her record store in Monterey if you have the opportunity. If not, go on to Siren Records Monterey. They have a whole slew of great albums you can buy online, very fair prices. And Lorain will, if you need anything, they're always there to help you out. So I can't say enough about her business. If you have anything to share about My Morning Jacket, go ahead, put it in the comment box. Thank you for tuning in. This has been great fun, and hopefully we have shared with you what we admire so much about this band, and hopefully we did it in a way that was articulate, cohesive, educational, and entertaining. So again, my name is W. I host these events on High Art on the Edge. Our next event will be covering a band all the way from Scotland. They are known as the Orchids, very much in the spirit of Trash Can Sinatra's, Aztec Camera, Orange Juice, really good stuff. Formerly on Siren Records. So join me and a special guest. And then we have some more coming up. We're going to be focusing on Bauhaus. We're going to be focusing on a legendary indie band, Jingle Jangle band, all the way from New Zealand. That will be the Bats, and plenty more on the horizon. So thank you so much. Take care of yourself. Keep listening to My Morning Jacket. Always a good thing. Always. Ciao.